and welcome to the council meeting of the University of Auckland. This is part A of the council meeting, and it is being live streamed to the website. So part A is the public part of the meeting, and it is being live streamed to the website. So I'll turn first of all to the, we have the agenda. We have opened earlier with a karakia with our briefings. We have an apology from Mr. McDonald, and Professor Tolmie is in transit and is hoping to join the meeting later, but she is an apology at the moment. Welcome to those members of staff and management who have joined us for this meeting. Now, the first part of the agenda, I would ask, and also actually my first thing is I welcome Mr. Sam Ricketts, who has joined us as a skills representative, as a member of council. Welcome, Sam, as this is your first meeting.
Thank you very much, Cecilia. I look forward to contributing. Thank you.
Thank you. So now I've just asked if anybody would has an interest to declare, if any of the council members have an interest to declare in any of the matters that are being considered today. I think perhaps Far, you might want to do, this is for both part A and part B. Perhaps you want to declare an interest in you might want to declare an interest in the fees.
Oh yes, fees. Sorry, I do apologize.
Yes.
Fees. Conflict of interest in respect of myself and both my siblings attend the university and are fee paying students.
Great, thank you. Is there any other person on council whose family are paying fees to the university? No? Good. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. We do then have the disclosure of interest by members. We've got the interest register there. If there is anything on the interest register or not on the interest register that should be changed, please notify Wendy of that. All right. So now I will now move to the confirmative degrees. So in accordance with the provisions, so I've got there, so we have the confirmative degrees, we have a list of degrees to be conferred. So by the authority vested in me by resolution of the University of Auckland Council, I, Cecilia Tarrant, Chancellor, confer the degrees stated upon those who, within their several faculties, have satisfied the requirements of this university. We also have a list of diplomas. So by the authority vested in me by resolution of the University of Auckland Council, I, Cecilia Tarrant, Chancellor, award the diplomas stated to those who, within their several faculties, have satisfied the requirements of this university. We'll now move to the council meetings, and we have there the draft minutes of part A of the council meeting of the 27th of August. Are there any comments or questions about those minutes? Okay, if not, sorry, Far, you have a question?
Yes, I suppose for those watching online and those who are students, I just provide a comment around the Finance Committee meeting minutes and its proposed resolutions around fees increase, which is...
No, I'm dealing with the council minutes of the last council meeting.
Oh, sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, no, I'm back there.
Yes, Cecilia, just a note from me. My name, Julia Pahina, not Kahina, I think was on the small.
Yeah,
small.
good. Yeah, good catch. Yeah, our apologies for that. Right, we'll make sure we change that. So I'm going to move, if there are no other further comments on those draft minutes, I'm going to move that they be received, and I'll have Jonathan second that. Thank you very much, Jonathan. Okay, so then we're now moved to the Vice-Chancellor's report, and we will take the report as read, but I will invite Professor Freshwater to make any additional comments that she'd like to add to the report, and then we can open for questions.
Kia ora, Chancellor, and kia ora, council members. Thank you. I always, as usual, take the report as read, but I do want to supplement what is a very fast-moving space around the policy settings. So further to my report, The first meeting of the University Strategy Group took place on the 9th of October, and the focus was really about setting out their stall in terms of the terms of reference, the emphasis on the tertiary education strategy, which has a focus on international education, was one on the agenda, as well as the quality assurance of our programs and the work that we've been doing towards self-accreditation. The science system funding was also a topic, and I'll come to that in a moment, as well as student loans and how they work, and of course conversations around the continuing fees-free year and the discussions around that. There are some other elements to that University Strategy Group work, including the work that we're doing with Science New Zealand, Universities New Zealand, and a collaboration across the CRIs. But they mainly come out of the work of the Prime Minister's Science, Technology and Advisory Council, fondly known as PIMSTAC. And you may have seen that there was an announcement yesterday around the work that's coming out of that group and in response to the Science System Advisory Group, where funding for research will now be caught under one umbrella, the Research Funding Council. So this is New Zealand Research Funding. It brings under that umbrella the previous funding that was under Marsden and under the Health Research Council. Now, the intention there is very laudable. It's in response to much of the feedback around duplication of effort across research councils and thinking about ways in which the TEC through the PBRF, the previous CRIs, now the PROs, and the strategy around research excellence nationally that's supported through the research councils and the science system all come together and really work together to ensure that we're focused on a programmatic approach to the nation's priorities, and in doing that attend to the best ways of delivering that through the funding that's available. 4 areas of priority have been determined. I won't go into detail here. Nevertheless, there is quite a lot of work now underway, both through the PIMSTAC, the University Strategy Group meeting, and a range of policy settings that are coming out of that. And I should say that aligned with that has been the conversation around freedom of expression and the work that we've been doing internally in the university and across the 8 universities with the government on the legislation. And the Minister has written to us accepting a proposition that the 8 universities have put together around the way in which we survey in the future against these statements that we're setting up on free speech. This university has a consultation process underway, as Council knows, has had a briefing on this previously. And once that consultation is concluded, we'll be bringing the statement back through the Council. A couple of other things to update you on in relationship to the external environment. So I mentioned this in a recent Finance Committee meeting. We've had some good conversations with the TEC around the 2026 funding and in relation to future funding of the medical placements, as well as some support for at least us going to a position of unfunded students. Not that there's any guarantee that the unfunded students will be funded, but there'll be no consequences for us to go to a certain limit. That's a strategic decision for us as management through council to think about that going forward. And I'm pleased to say that we continue to bring in additional funding from the TEC on our priority areas. Those priority areas predominantly sit within STEM. I just underline that again because of the reduced funding that we're seeing in research and possibly reduced funding in the student experience and student funded areas around arts, humanities and social sciences. That leads me to say something about the recent alumni events in the UK, and also Eric has been involved in a number of events recently in the US, and we've had some events across Singapore. So at the UK events, and a big shout out to our UK trustees who do an amazing job for us with our substantial UK alumni. We focused this year on the arts, humanities and social science, having done 3 years of work around the STEM subjects. And so we had a pledge dinner with the 40 under 40 for the Centre for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, which was really productive. We have some amazing alumni in that space. And we also had a lunch with Symphonia Smith Street, which means that we are able to secure further funding for students on scholarships in our School of Music. And again, that was a huge success. A further area of success was the area around McLaren and the work we're doing on the High Performance Centre that's based out at Newmarket. And Richard Clark, our Dean of Engineering, was in Singapore with Mark Bentley, supporting that work with our alumni. And we had Helen Clark attending that along with other alumni. I was attending the McLaren Centre in Woking to present the honorary doctorate posthumously around Bruce McLaren, and that's now taken pride of place. And we have continued to build that internship programme. It's looking extremely satisfactory in terms of its future contribution and collaboration with the university. I do want to congratulate the university and all of our staff and community on the continued success in our rankings outcome. It really is quite difficult to maintain our positions as we have done in the QS this year and also in the Times Higher Education World University Rankings. This is not something to be sniffed at given the increased competition from particularly universities in countries that have not been in the rankings and are now having a huge investment from their governments to push them up the rankings, and for us to maintain that standing is really quite something. In that, we also have the largest number of top 2% researchers in the university we've ever had. This again is something to celebrate. And whilst I was travelling on the alumni events, I was able to meet with Elsevier to continue our conversations about the 4th generation university rankings, which are much more related to our connection to industry, business, our community, mentorship, and our impact more broadly. I will move on just to say that the staff survey results that we have received very recently were a topic of the All Staff Zoom and will be the subject of a webinar later this week. In fact, I think it is not the end of this week, maybe next week, but we certainly have that in place. And it's been really pleasing to see the level of engagement that we've had with that staff survey at this time when it's important for us to get feedback. And of course, there are always things that we can improve on and an opportunity for us to work with our staff in that context. Closer to home, we have our new COO starting on the 1st of December. Mark Gregory, who's an experienced COO, has worked in the Group of 8 and most recently in Australia, will be arriving in the university in early December, and at the same time has been involved in the appointment of our new Director of Governance, which is a new directorate. We have a fantastic appointment to that new directorship, and also to our Director of Strategy and Planning, again a new appointment. And so that portfolio is really shaping up very nicely for the future, and I'm pleased to see that we've been able to secure some really high quality candidates. I think I'll leave it there. In my report, I've commended everybody for the enormous success around graduations and Manawamai and a range of other successes, including being named #1 globally for entrepreneurship and innovation. We continue to succeed on the global platform, really punching above our weight. So congratulations to everybody on all of that. Happy to take questions. Lots of things happening nationally around the changes following the reforms, and that will continue. And of course, that leads to a lot of uncertainty But as always, we're ahead of the curve and will continue to be so. Jonathan.
Yeah, John, I'm sure you've thought about this before, but is there any way using our crack marketing team that we could change the narrative on university ranking from, yeah, I fear again that the narrative will be, oh, you fell 4 places, no New Zealand university in top 100, all, to University of Auckland is in the top 4% in the world, which I think I'm right, or roughly right, close to being right. Because when you realize that there's 2,100 universities in that sample set, I think that's what I read, and we're 150. I mean, that's an elite position, actually, right?
So can I just, you've given me a great opportunity there, Jonathan. We are in the top 100 in 3 rankings. In fact, we're in the top 50 in the world in 2 rankings. We're in the top 50 in the Times Higher Impact Rankings, which is about sustainability and innovation. We're in the top 50 in the QS. This is the Future 17 against the Sustainable Development Goals. We are in the top 50, in fact, currently placed at 17 in that ranking. We're at number 65 in the QS reputation ranking. We are in the top 100 in 3 world rankings. In the Times Higher, we've held that position of around 150. In fact, we're higher than we were a few years ago for some time. You're right to conclude there's 2,100, but there are over 10,000 universities worldwide. And in that over 10,000 universities, think about this as a sample, only 2,100 are ranked out of the 10,000. And out of those 2,100, we are placed at a number 156, which is an increase of a 0.3% on our previous ranking last year. It's a highly complex algorithm. And that's not well understood. And there's a media grab to serve an audience, which is very quick to say we're failing. In fact, we need to really underpin this message. We have 3 rankings to our names where we are outperforming the group of 8.
I think you've just written the media release.
I hope that's clear, because we put this out all the time. We provide the data. We show where we've increased in the ranking, despite the fact that we might move around 1 or 2 places. But when there's over 10,000 universities moving around 1 or 2 places, give it a rest.
Absolutely. Are there any other questions for Dawn? All right, thank you very much, Dawn. I'm going to move that your report be received, and I'm going to ask Sam to second that. Thank you. All those in favour? Good. Anybody against? Good. Thank you very much. Okay. Now moving to the next matter of business. Apologies, I believe I'm at the committees. Council, I'm at the reports of the committees, and the first committee is the Finance Committee, and we have the minutes there of Part A of the Finance Committee from the 26th of September. Are there any questions around those minutes? Okay, I'm going to move that those minutes be received, and I'll ask John to second those, if that's okay, John. Thank you. And then all those in favour? Anybody against? Right, thank you. So now we'll move to the next matter, the finance matter, and that's the fees paper for 2026. And I'll invite Dawn, I don't know if you wanted to make a comment, but I'm going to invite Tim to speak to this paper.
Let's go directly to Tim, Cecilia.
Okay. Tim, I'll ask you, I mean, obviously there's a number of resolutions before us, but I'll ask you to speak to the paper, and then I'll open it up for conversation.
Tēnā koutou. Thank you, Chancellor. I'll take the paper as read. I'll start off with an overview of the domestic fee increase as proposed in this paper. So we have viewed this through the lens of the need to maintain financial sustainability and also obviously reflecting the policy settings and parameters that the government have set, and also with an eye on maintaining quality student experience. We're also mindful of the fact that the cost of living challenges still continue for our students as they do for us, as is brought out in this paper. If I just begin by reminding the committee that the fee increase that we're reviewing here is for the student component of the fee, which represents roughly 35 to 40% of the total income value of a domestic student, the rest being the DQ7 subsidy or tuition funding that's received from the government. And the DQ7 funding has been set for 2026, which reflects the prioritisation that the Vice-Chancellor referred to just now in terms of the prioritisation to STEM largely, with those subjects receiving an increase of 4.75% and the other non-priority areas receiving a 0% increase. We also reflect that the temporary funding increase that was applied in 2024 and 2025, the 4% increase, is removed from the system in 2026. So there's a net impact there. So turning to the fee increase that we're proposing, domestic fee, we are proposing to maintain that in line with the annual fee maximum that has been approved by the Minister of 6%. And that is consistent with what was applied last year. The paper highlights the fact that due to the weighting in terms of the total value associated with domestic students and that split between the subsidy and the direct fee component, the overall increase is around just over 3% in terms of the weighted average, and that compares to around 2.4% of the expected increase in our cost base next year based on current forecasts. We also highlight the fact that since 2020 there's been a divergence between CPI and the indexation applied to fees and the subsidy. And even with these proposed increases in 2026, the cumulative difference or shortfall against CPI is in the region of 10.5%. So I'll pause there and take questions. Thank you.
So this is questions in respect to the domestic fee increase. Are there questions for Tim in respect of that? Yes, Sam?
Yeah, thank you, Tim. And nice to meet you. Just on the cumulative shortfall of 10.5%, what did it apply to again, sorry?
So you're breaking
sorry,
up.
I was saying in terms of the cumulative shortfall, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Just in terms of the cumulative shortfall of 10.5%, what period did that apply to, sorry?
So that is accumulated since 2020.
2020, okay. Thank you, Tim.
So Jonathan?
Yeah, Tim, I think a key message within the paper is that the weighted average increase is only like 2 to 3%.
That's right.
Because of domestic or government support only being 1.4%. There might have been another factor too, because thinking about our students and their families, 6% is more than the cost of living increase, inflation now. And so we'd want the communications to be sympathetic to families who are having all sorts of affordability challenges. And your note within the paper explains the pressures on our funding and the reason that 6% is so important.
Thank you. Yes, I think I'd say, first of all, yes, we are very mindful of that cost of living impact and the pressure this is putting on all students, which obviously, is reflected in our own cost base as well. But I'll also highlight we have over $100 million of scholarship funds that are assigned for next year. We also have hardship funds, and we work closely with the student union, the AUSA, in terms of how we manage and apply those funds. So we do look at other mechanisms to try and provide relief where we're able to.
Thank you, Tim. Farn?
Hello. I do apologize for my earlier discrepancy, Madam Chair. I suppose for those watching online, it's really important that you read the papers that are publicly available for you to digest, and especially to to highlight to other governors around what students are feeling. And I note Jonathan's comment around cost of living and the fee increase being larger. And I make these comments as a way of comment. I suppose students really want to see communication around even prior to these meetings and these resolutions being brought forward to council. And I think it's really important that we put that forward to councillors, but also I may not return at the next meeting, so because my position's up for election. So it's really important that members of the student community who are watching our proceedings understand the financial dynamic that the university is operating in, and these are multiple stakeholders that have interests in the operation and governance of the university. As I've sort of stated in previous meetings, my concerns around communicating these fee increases, and especially in regards to allocating the compulsory student services fee, which is really important for student experience and for those things that students want funded as part of their student experience. As I've sort of indicated, I won't be voting for the resolution. Subject again, of course, to all the legal duties I'm subject to as a member of council. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Far. Kathy?
I guess just, Jonathan, one thing that the Finance Committee discussed and asked that the team really highlight to students the scholarships, including hardship grants that are available. They have not all been used. So we do encourage students to actually take advantage of those.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Kathy. It's a good point, and Tim makes that point too. Okay, well, that's I think, look, we have I'm going to consider all of the motions at the end of this discussion, and Tim has now just dealt with the domestic fees, but I think we should go on, Tim, now and discuss the international fees and then also discuss the student services component.
Thank you. International fees are not regulated, so we are able to compare ourselves to the market and look at our market positioning, and also as well as that, reflect demand and quality that that is represented through the University of Auckland. So our review and positioning is that we try to maintain a position that's just below the group of 8. And I'll also just remind the committee that the increase that we're talking about in this paper is for 2027. We always set the international fees 2 years ahead to allow for the marketing and communications to be managed. The fee increase that was approved for 2026 is 5%. And we are proposing a similar level of 5% for 2027, with the exception of some B&E courses where we're proposing to increase them by 6% to bring them into alignment with the market. So I'll pause there for questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Tim around the international component of fees? No? All right. Tim, why don't you go on to the student services,
Thank you very
fee.
much. Okay,
Compulsory student services fee. Yeah.
the compulsory student services fee. We are required to go through a consultation process each year with the students, and that was completed in July and August. In that process, we indicate a proposed maximum increase for next year, and we consult around that. We were consulting that the maximum we were referencing at that point was 3.5%. We've since worked through the feedback and also our forecasts for next year, and we are proposing an increase of 2.2% to the compulsory student fee for next year. You will see there is a chart that this is on chart 8 on page 73, which compares us to the other universities, and the increase is indexed back starting from 2021. And we represent the lower line on that chart. The dotted line shows our cost profile over that period. And we've always worked hard to maintain a direct relationship between the student fee and our cost base. So I think that's probably all I need to say. So 2.2% is the recommended increase.
Okay. So are there any questions about that? I see Far, you have your hand up. I'll go to you, and then if anybody else has a question, if they could indicate, please. Far, to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, it's for those who are watching our proceedings online, and I know there's some 45 of you watching. It's really important that you understand, if you're a student, that the compulsory student services fee is in part controlled by you. You decide where that money goes, and also give feedback to the university around how much that should increase by, or whether it should stay the same. It's really important that students understand that I have raised objection around how the process in which we've allocated those funds. A lot of costs are going towards funding of property costs associated with delivering some of those services. So, I have raised those issues, and management is currently going through some proposed reforms. But again, it's really important that management understand, or from my perspective, or from students' perspective, that they really want to know what's happening with these funds and how they're being allocated. Again, I preface those comments subject to all the legal duties I'm bound by as a member of this council, but I'll be voting down these resolutions again.
Yeah, I don't know whether, Tim, whether you would like to comment on the consultation that obviously takes place. And as you say, the consultation that went out to students actually involved a proposal for a higher student services levy. And we do have in the papers the consultation document that went out to students.
That's right. I think Far's making a good point, because I think this is about engagement with students, and so this is an open process, and it is a relatively small proportion of students that actively participate in this and actually vote when we do run the survey. So there's always an opportunity for a greater representation of the student voice in this process. We're also looking at how we can enhance the process for next year by giving more of an indication of the forecast for the following year that we will be consulting on. So we'll be looking at some ways that we can improve the process through that. But obviously, we follow a process. There is student representation. We listen and process the feedback that we receive through that process, and that's all taken into account as we complete this.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments on the free paper before I put the resolutions? Okay, so the resolutions, I have resolutions here, and I'm going to move these resolutions. So I'm going to move that council approve, and there are 6 resolutions. So I'm going to read each of the resolutions, but I'm going to take them all as one resolution. And so I'm going to read them all now. The Chancellor moves that Council approve the attached domestic fees schedule for 2026 in line with the government's AMFM. Approve the attached international fee schedule for 2027, including study abroad, up education, and the ELA fee schedule, which is Appendix B. Authorize the Vice-Chancellor to assign any new programs, including government DQ7 plus funded micro-credentials or programs coming newly available to international students in 2027, to an appropriate band to enable offers to be made during the recruitment cycle, and report these decisions back to Council. And authorise the Vice-Chancellor to set fees for non-government funded micro-credentials and for university programs delivered offshore, subject to such fees being reported to the Council meeting immediately following. Approve the compulsory student services fee at $9.77 per point, GST inclusive, a 2.2% increase, and the associated changes to the student fee schedule, which is Appendix C to the paper. And approve the attached other fee schedule for 2026, which is, I think it says Appendix C, but I think it's Appendix D. So I'll ask Kathy Quinn to second those resolutions. Thank you, Kathy. And then I'll ask everybody in favour to indicate that they are in favour. Thank you. Anybody against, please indicate. So far. Did I get that? Yes, right. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I have Wendy, I have everybody except Far indicating they are in favour. Thank you. Thank you very much to Council for dealing with that. We're now on to the minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee from the 17th of September 2025. Those are just the minutes of Part A. Are there any questions about those minutes? Okay, if there are no questions about those minutes, I will move that those minutes be noted, and that Jonathan, I'll ask you to second those. Thank you very much. Could I ask everybody in favour to vote? Everybody voting in favour of those? Anybody against? Thank you. Now I'm moving to the minutes of the Naming Committee. This is Part A of the Naming Committee. Once again, the minutes are there. Are there any questions on Part A of the Naming Committee? If no questions, I'm going to move that they be noted, and I'm going to ask Candice to second that. Thank you. Actually, I apologise. I'm receiving them, not noting them. So Candice, you second that. And then I'm going to move to the minutes of the Honours Committee. This is once again Part A of the Honours Committee. And if there are any questions on those, no, okay, I'm going to move that those minutes be received, and I'm going to ask Far to second those. Far, thank you very much. All those voting in favour? Thank you very much. Okay, then I have the Vice-Chancellor's Review and Executive Remuneration Committee. This is Part A of the minutes. This is a meeting that was held to consider the selection of somebody for the Maori position on Council. This is Part A of the minutes. Are there any questions on Part A? Okay, if there are no questions on Part A, I'll move that these be received and ask Kathy to second those minutes. Thank you, Kathy. And then I will move to the Runanga, and we have the Runanga report from the Runanga there. I see Professor Te Kawaho Hoskins is with us, I believe. Professor, is there any comment you would like to make on the Runanga report?
Oh, kia ora, Cecilia, o tira tēnā tātou katoa. If I could have a couple of minutes just to verbally say some things connected to the report. On behalf of Runanga members who report a real and deep sense of disappointment in the proposals before you today, hold a view that the university under pressure are willing to forego commitments of significant importance to Māori staff, students, communities, hapu and iwi, and that we are taking this course of action in the context of social and political hostility to Māori that I'm sure we're all aware of, and forms of increasing social polarisation, and that the Runanga view these courses as critical and positive initiative and contribution to nation building for all our students, and see our walking back from those commitments as a real lost opportunity to contribute in that way. The Runanga recognises that our Vice-Chancellor has sought to salvage something meaningful for our students, and recognises the hundreds of hours of work by staff, so that is not lost, and there's an appreciation for that, for those efforts. However, the Runanga would like to reiterate the view. Their view remains that the core status of the courses should be maintained as giving effect to taumata teite and our graduate profile. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora Te Kawaho. Are there any questions for Te Kawaho? Okay.
Not questions, Cecilia. I'm not sure. But I'd like to add to the kōrero that she's just given, and that is that, you know, I've been incredibly proud of being a member of this council since I've been on the council, and my term's coming to an end, because I've seen the change over the time that I've been here. And a lot of that change has been led by Te Kawaho herself, because she came on around the same time as I have been on here. And I like the Runanga, and disappointed really that, because I see this as a back down of the decision that that the council arrived at, and I see that it's undermines the relationship that we've built with our local iwi, Ngāti Whātua ki Ōrākei. It undermines our commitment to tiriti commitments, and really we're putting ourselves on the wrong side of history, in that we are, it appears to be a back down because of politicization, and I strongly stand against that. It reeks of Trumpism to me, and I'm not happy about it. So that's all I wanted to say, that we need, to have that voice. The commitment that we made to diversity, equity, seems to be compromised by outside influences, and that's a pity for me, because I've been proud to be part of this council and part of this university, representing the Māori people. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora, John. Dawn.
Thanks, Cecilia. Cecilia, I thought it would be a good opportunity to just jump in, because we are going to address this item in more detail later on in the agenda. We have got this as a specific item once we've gone through the Senate minutes, and I'm happy to talk in a bit more detail, but I didn't want to let this go without just acknowledging both Te Kawaho and John. I do want to say that the university views the work that we've been doing on this particular course, but also more broadly on the curriculum transformation, as positive and meaningful for the graduate profile. And our view would be that we are not losing the course. We're responding to student feedback, and in that way it retains its position as a required course for many of our professions, but also offers some flexibility and responsiveness to students who are grappling with some of the emphasis and focus. So I think it would be really useful to have this conversation as part of the item. And notwithstanding, I want to acknowledge Te Kawaho's comments on behalf of the Runanga and John's input, both as council member and John, your support of Te Kawaho's work and the university's broader strategy.
Kia ora, Dawn. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to, if there are no more sort of questions specifically on the Runanga, I'm going to move that the report of the Runanga be received, and you know, we do note what Te Kawaho has raised with respect to the Runanga's advice relating to the Vice Chancellor's proposed direction relating to the Waipapa Taumata Road courses. Okay, and could I ask Julia to second that motion? Julia? Good, thank you. And I'm going to move that the report be received. All those in favour? Receiving the report, thank you. Anybody against receiving the report? No, thank you. So now,
Cecilia, could I just double check? One part of the report was a request to meet, and I just wondered, is that something that you'd consider separately?
yeah, I would suggest that is something that we should consider separately.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, yeah. No, I did note that, and I will make a note of it, Gemma. Thank you. Okay. Yep. So now we're moving to the Senate meeting of the 15th of September. What we have here at this item is the material for council from the meeting of the Senate, not including the item regarding the Waipapa Taumata Road. So we're going to simply deal with the other items right now, and then we will deal later in the meeting more specifically with the discussion around the Waipapa Taumata Road course. So Dawn, I don't know if there's any comment you want to make about the other matters which
No, Chancellor, thank you, because we're taking the matters pertaining to free speech consultation to the next agenda, and so that was deferred from this meeting.
Okay, right. Okay, good. Then we have the report of Senate there for those, as I say, with respect to those other matters. Is there anything is there any part of those matters that anybody wishes to ask a question on? Okay, all right. Then I'm going to move that the matters, the recommendations in Part A of the report of Senate. I mean, we need to be very careful here, Wendy, that that the recommendation of Part A of the report be adopted and Parts B and C be noted. But obviously, I am only speaking in relation to the matters. I'm not actually, it's not Part B, it's only Part A and C, right? So this resolution we're now passing only relates to Part A and Part C, because Part B is the item with respect to Waipapa Taumata Road. Let's see Wendy anyway. I've lost Wendy. Oh, there you are, Wendy, right? Good with that? Yes. Okay. So so I'm moving that the recommendations in Part A of the report of Senate of the 15th of September be adopted and Part C be noted. And I'll ask Dawn to second that. Thank you. All right. All those in favour? Anybody against? Okay. Thank you very much. And then I'm going to go to the next meeting of Senate, which was the special meeting of Senate held on the 26th of September. Now, this meeting had two purposes. You'll see that this was a meeting that I attended along with Gemma and Julia and Professor Julia Tolmie as members of the Appointments Committee, and we went to specifically engage with Senate on the questions around the Vice Chancellor, the new Vice Chancellor's appointment. And so there is, you'll see here minutes of that. And then once we also had Birgit Brandt and Gordon, whose last name I can't remember, from Parrot Labour with us in that meeting. And so that there. And then after we had left the meeting, there were two motions put to the meeting. And those two motions are two motions to recommend to council. And so you'll see those there. So in respect of these, the Appointments Committee held a meeting, and now just to refresh your memory, the Appointments Committee is myself as chair, Kathy Quinn, the Pro-Chancellor, Jonathan Mason, the chair of Audit and Risk, Rob McDonald, the chair of the Finance Committee, Gemma Skipper as the Professional Services representative on council, and Professor Julia Tolmie as the academic representative on council. And we are the Appointments Committee which has been constituted in accordance with the terms of reference, the appropriate terms of reference for the council committee. And so we held a meeting to discuss this and have I think it's, I would say as a committee, we are not in favour of council adopting either of these motions as they are written. However, we do have a proposed motion that we would recommend. And that is that we would recommend, and this was a recommendation made by Professor Tolmie as who is the, as I say, the academic representative on council, was that we invite Senate to have an election to elect 2 members of Senate to be part of the focus groups. So what you have here is that the first Senate motion asks that they be able to appoint, the Senate be able to appoint 2 people to add to the Appointments Committee. We don't believe that's appropriate, and it's certainly not within the terms of reference. The second motion was to allow the faculties and LSIRs to elect members, people to be on the focus groups. And as I think it is, we as a committee agree with the concerns raised, which are very well summarised in the Senate meeting report around the diversity and actually what the whole purpose of the focus groups are, and the difficulty. And also we have been very firmly advised by Parrot Labour that there is a limit to the number of people you can have candidates meet. And by giving 8 of those positions to the faculty and the LSIRs, we will be significantly impacting the robustness of the process and the success of the process, they believe. At the meeting that we had Parrot Labour there to advisors. So the recommendation that Professor Tolmie is proposing that we put to council is that we invite Senate to elect 2 members of Senate to be on the focus groups. So that provides, with academic representation. However, the Appointments Committee definitely are intent on making sure that we have broader academic representation than that, but it's going to be very important to choose the appropriate academic people to speak to the candidates once we know who in fact is on that short list of candidates. And we make sure that we've got real diversity of academics, whether that's, an early career researcher, whether that's a professor, sort of that we have a good range of people who can really very much represent the candidate, represent the university to the candidates and answer the candidates' questions. So that's, I would say, my verbal report on the Appointments Committee in respect of this matter. So are there any discussion on the matters that anybody would like to raise? Far.
Just again, just for comment and for those watching our proceedings, the 36 of you watching, students have raised questions around student involvement in the appointment of the incoming VC, and to provide sort of context, your student representative will have a final vote on that proceeding once the VCERC reports back to council. So your student representative and student voices are being heard at the various highest level of governance in the university. That's sort of, I wanted to make a comment around that in terms of what we're doing in terms of this process. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Far. Are there any other questions, comments? All right, if there are no other questions, then my proposal is that I am proposing to put a resolution that council invite the Senate to elect 2 members of Senate to join the focus groups that will meet with the shortlisted candidates from the Vice Chancellor appointment process. Got that, Wendy? Okay. So I'm going to ask Gemma to second that resolution. Thank you. All those in favour? Anybody against? Thank you very much. Okay, now we, in terms of the papers, we have a number of matters of correspondence that have been sent to council, or that have been asked to be put before council, and all of these letters in that are in Part A all relate to the Waipapa Taumata Row courses. So my suggestion would be that that we vote to receive the letters, and I'm sure everybody has read the letters and will be able to take them into consideration in the discussion that we then have in the next matter with respect to the Vice Chancellor's proposed direction for the Waipapa Taumata Row courses.
Sure, Cecilia, thank you.
Could I just, I'm sorry, Dawn, I'm just going to, let's see, I'm just going to move that council receive the letters and the email that are in the papers. And I'm just going to ask Jonathan to second that. Thank you, Jonathan. Okay. All right. So all those in favour? Okay. All right, thank you very much. Okay, anybody against? No, receive them. Okay, yes, Dawn, I'll turn over to you now to make any comment you'd like to in terms of the memorandum there in respect of the recommended direction for the Waipapa Taumata Road courses.
So, council members, you have the memo, and attached to that, you also have some background information, which is a summary, because many of you are familiar with this, and the student consultative group feedback, the excerpt from the minutes. Of course, we have just heard from the Chancellor that we also have quite a lot of correspondence on this item. I just want to remind you how we got to this point. So, John Patai, thank you for your comments earlier, but it is important to recognise that it wasn't a council decision around the course. The council actually asked us, when we were undertaking the CFT, the development of the new curriculum, of which WTR is a component, to provide a report back to council and to report on the evaluation once the course had run at least once. And of course, we're into the second semester, so the second iteration of that course. So the decision was actually a decision of the university executive through the Senate and through the Education Committee to create, as part of the new CFT, the 15-point requirement for the undergraduate course, the WTR. And the university has lots of compulsory courses, lots of core requirements. This is only one of them that is situated within the overall programme. And so we came back to council with that report and evaluation. At the last meeting, I had indicated that I needed more time to look at the suite of documents and the feedback from the students and to work through the next steps with the Senate. And having looked at a whole range of documents, so it's not just the draft external review that was commissioned, which was undertaken, and I have the draft that's now in process of being re-looked at with Sarah Young, who's the DVC education. So she's the person who's taken over from the previous DVC, Simon Holdaway. So in that transition, Simon led that review, and then of course we've made a formal appointment, and so that's now with Sarah. But rather than hold up that process looking at the draft review in the context of 5 or 6 other documents, an operational document, feedback from the AUSA, other pieces of information that have come through from the faculty feedback, which of course comes through Senate, and the now student feedback and the student evaluation, which amounted to 5,500 students who'd undertaken the first course. And we always do a review of new courses. This is not novel. It's not something out of sync. And we do actually get a lot of feedback from students on new courses. And some of what we've received is not dissimilar to that, because often new courses have some glitches and some teething problems. So having looked at all of that information and taken the advice from the various committees and all of the documents, some of which are referenced here, including the advice I've received from Senate, I've proposed 5 recommendations. And can I be absolutely clear? The recommendations do not include removing this course from the curriculum. We would have to respond to the student feedback. The student feedback, in essence, indicates that there's further work to be done on the content in terms of it's working across 5 different faculties. There is some core content, but there's a lot of nuanced content at the discipline level. And we need to ensure that we're addressing that content at the right level across the 5 faculties. There are some discrepancies there, both in terms of its content and the assessment. There are some questions around the purpose and focus, which we can be clearer on around this particular course. It is new, so that's understandable, but we can be clearer around that. And there are some questions around the organisation and management. Now, that doesn't take away from the positive feedback that came through those student evaluations. So while some students found some of the content repetitive from material they'd learned at high school or across different modules within the university, there was, of course, an acknowledgement that this was very interesting, useful and positive information to be supporting students as they enter the university and learn how to be a student at the University of Auckland. What we're suggesting here, and this is with input from senior leaders from all the faculty deans, Sarah can speak to this, she's done a lot of work behind the scenes on this, and communications with students who were also at Senate and presented on this. And of course, you've heard from Te Kawaha on the Runanga and a range of other people, is that we retain the current course where it's required for professional accreditation, and that's quite a substantial number of courses across the faculties. We also want to be able to offer flexibility in a Gen Ed course that aligns with the timing of which these students would undertake the WTR course. So for example, in the business school, an other alternative option outside of the WTR, which also already had some of this similar content, will be offered. But it is a narrowed group of Gen Ed courses. This is not about generating a whole new suite of courses. So the faculties are leading this. It's quite right that the faculties take the lead on this. This is where they are really engaging with their own discipline-specific knowledge, and that the core content is modified and responds to student feedback. And that's one of the recommendations here. We're really clear about promoting the benefits of the WTR course to the new undergraduate students, and we want to be able to continue to do that. Really what I'm asking for here is for Council to endorse the recommendations that I'm putting before you on the basis of this being the report back to Council that was requested by Council as part of their interest in the evaluation of the students in semester 1 following the development of the new course. I'm happy to take questions, but I think I'll leave it there because you've heard from a range of people. I would just say that the interest in this course goes way beyond the university. There, of course, has been letters to Council and to myself, petitions, media interest, OIAs, and a range of political interests here. What I would encourage the Council to do is to read through the best interests of the students here and in the best interests of the university, which is paramount to the decision we're about to make. And I want to end by congratulating, commending all the people that have worked really hard to get us to this point, because as I say, there was tremendous narrative, qualitative feedback in the student responses, which I read every single one of. And our staff have done a very good job of really pulling this together under what has been quite testing and trying circumstances, some of which you will be familiar with. This is about the next iteration of this course and taking forward what is going to be a really meaningful experience aligned with our strategy and our graduate profile.
Thank you, Dawn. Sarah, is there anything you would like to add?
I think Dawn's given a very comprehensive framing of this. I think obviously we've got a significant amount of feedback, but I think the key thing for us, notwithstanding that we're looking at mitigating, we're always interested in, I guess, in terms of the external voice, but it's what our students and staff are saying to us, and the majority of the students and staff. And we're talking about thousands of bits of feedback there. And so we're pulling all this together and trying to find a common ground in terms of how we move forward, whilst not, of course, stopping the course.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Are there any questions for Dawn or Sarah around the what is being proposed? Gemma.
Thank you, Dawn and Sarah. I heard you outline the importance of student voice in your introductions, and that really resonates with me. So I appreciate you putting that at the forefront. I do have to say that the motion isn't sitting easy with me, and I have a couple points I'm curious about. So the feedback in the correspondence, 2 points, sorry. So feedback in the correspondence highlighted some operational risks to making the change. And I'd be interested in you expanding on how those risks might be managed, especially in light of our goal to return to a sustainable financial operating surplus. And then secondly, considering some of the commentary coming through the correspondence, what's your thinking on how we as a university further the kotuitanga? Thank you.
Sure, I'm happy to answer the kotuitanga question. And I think Sarah can respond to the way in which we're mitigating risk, Gemma, and thank you for raising those points. So the kotuitanga, we did quite a lot of work, as you know, only too well, and Te Kauho and John know, with Michael Steedman, particularly on working with Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei on the programme of work around the course. And there's been contributions not only from staff but from Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei. We've been working behind the scenes with Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei. In fact, the Chancellor has had the opportunity also to pick this up and to think about this in the context of that koituitanga. There is support for us to continue with the process that we're in right now, Gemma. It's really important that we do maintain those relationships and that we are continuing to value the support that's provided through our local iwi hapu and particularly Ngāti Whātua, but of course others. And Sarah, you've picked this up. Cecilia might want to comment, but on that, and then maybe you can talk about the risk mitigation.
Yeah, thanks, Dawn. And Gemma, and for council members, I don't see what we're doing as just about one course. It's a whole portfolio of activity that we do throughout all of our teaching, our research, all of the external engagement that we do. And you're well aware of all the different things that we do in that space. So I think, putting it all on one course or a change to one course is not really, around the activity, articulating what we do in the activity that we do there. I think in terms of risk mitigation, in terms of from a professional and operational point of view, well, certainly we had challenges this year setting up small group teaching for the courses, and we were able to do that for the 8,500 students that are taking the course. But it did have ongoing challenges for timetabling for other courses. So that was one of the key challenges. And that came through also strongly in the feedback from faculty and from student experience in terms of their experience in the course. In terms of the proposed changes, of course, we in about a month's time, we will open, or just under a month's time, we'll open enrolments for next year. So there's quite a tight turnaround to get these changes done and to look to change some of the regulations. We've obviously been working on that in the background as a draft to prepare us for the direction of travel. And we've mapped out what that will look like in terms of professional staffing activity that we can surge to help us over that period of time to be able to hit that November the 3rd deadline.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that, Sarah. Far.
I think it's really important that I make a contribution in terms of this debate. A lot of students have, the first year, well, I represent 48,000 students on this council, right? Whilst also upholding all the other legal duties on me as a council member. And of those students, 8,000 of them, according to the numbers, are required to take this course. A number of those students provided set evaluations, and students have been involved in the review process throughout. There are student members on Senate who've provided their contribution and whom I have talked with around how I should vote and how I should engage in terms of this piece of business. There is also a lot of media commentary, which I have followed since last year when this council also resolved to review, Waipapa Te Rau. And that was when I wasn't a council member. It's really important that students have confidence in our ability as an institution. And it's great to hear that student voice is being prioritized, but students aren't sort of stupid. Some external stakeholders have sort of promoted Waipapa Te Rau, the course, as a form of indoctrination or what have you. And that is fundamentally wrong and incorrect. Our students are smart enough to make up their own conclusions on things around the world that they interact with. Right? When external stakeholders claim to represent students, it doesn't help us. And as their elected student representative to this board, it is an insult to me and other student leaders as well. Let me be really clear. This university has followed an academic process and has exercised its academic freedom in tailoring this course and then subsequently making a different decision. No one can claim victory in terms of these external stakeholders attacking this university and claiming things to represent students. As the person with a legal mandate to represent students to this board, I'm not happy when, other external stakeholders, or whoever they may be, claim to represent students. We've just received correspondence again providing us alternatives. Some of those alternatives don't work out, and it just, I find it insulting for us for people to say that they've claimed a victory. I will be voting for the proposal. Students have given me the same feedback that Dawn and management have provided, and council members should be rest assured, from my perspective, that our commitment to Te Riti o Waitangi, as found in the Education Training Act, is still there. So again, I apologise for the lengthy, sort of unstructured contribution, but
Thank you,
that's
Far.
You're far.
Julia.
Kia ora. So I remember when I actually first joined the council when this was brought forward, and I personally found it incredibly revolutionary and very much making a stake in the ground for the university. We've just had conversations around brand, marketing, positioning, and kind of the lack thereof of that with the university in the past, and now our journey to kind of redefine what that really means. When I think about creating a sense of belonging and cohesion and something that people want to be part of, I'm curious to know, how do we see the university being able to mend relationships which were birthed from a place of, I guess, transformation, from shifts, from change, from really leading and kind of creating new ground in the way that we are inviting or bringing together our sense of community all together onto the university. How do you see, Dawn, yourself, and I guess with the staff here as well that are presenting different views, how do you see that cohesion being able to be mended, I suppose, from here?
Thanks, Julia. And some of this, perhaps, as Eric's still here, he can respond to, because we've been talking about this in relation to the broader comms and marketing strategy and our reputation. And some of it is, of course, about continuing to ensure that we are making clear the reasons why we're making the decisions and helping people to understand the context, because I think Far's just laid it out quite clearly. Not everybody understands the university context. It's far more complex than many corporates even. And holding on to those sorts of alumni donor relationships really closely to make sure that we're informing, working with our peers, using council members, ambassadors to really talk on our behalf, because quite often if it's us that's doing the talking, it looks like it's self-serving and self-interested. The area where we have the most difficulty is actually not with many of our community members. It's with making our voice heard in an evidence-based way and in a correct way in the media and social media, where there is an intent often to only provide a very small proportion of a story for various reasons. And so that's a piece of work that we really do have to start to consider, because so much of our remedial work and recovering relationships is actually as a result of that negative media that has often portrayed things through misinformation and deliberate disinformation. And so I think nobody has this right at the moment. Certainly we have an opportunity through leading with authenticity, genuineness, actually putting out there when we've made mistakes, putting out there that we're a learning institution and we learn, and we will continually critique ourselves and continue to learn in the best interests of serving our communities. That sometimes means doing things differently, responding to things in a way that we hadn't necessarily thought about, but not being defensive, but also at the same time holding firm on what we believe is the most appropriate educational direction for our students. Eric, is there anything you want to add, by the way, in terms of the external engagement strategies?
Yeah, thank you, Dawn. I think whether or not you're for or against the proposal, I go back to something which Sarah said, is that I wouldn't want it to seem as if the university's relationship with any single one group of its stakeholders is based on a single activity or a single initiative, because it is very important that we are maintaining lines of communication, lines of dialogue, and engagement across hundreds, if not thousands, of touch points across the university with individual academics, with individual staff members, and of course with the corporate university as such. So I think very important to me that we are very cognizant of how we manage that broader relationship beyond just a single decision. And ultimately that comes back to the earlier conversation about the narrative and ensuring that our broad intentions are understood and can be transmitted to a broad range of stakeholders in many different ways.
Great. And just quickly, just to
Julia,
check
can I
in.
just
Oh, sorry.
expand that slightly, because I do want to underline something that FAR hasn't said explicitly, that I will say. I think it's really unfortunate when our students get hijacked by some of the other, sort of issues that we're dealing with in society. And that's also upon us to help students understand how to make decisions about the information they're receiving, and to think about, the critical analysis, decision making, moral reasoning, and all of those things that go with that. So I think there's more work for us to do on that.
Thank you, Dawn. I just wanted to make just one quick check-in with Te Kahoho around relationship to Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei. How do you see us, or do you see the university needing to mend or to be navigating that relational space differently based on where to from here?
Kia ora, Julia. I think we're still in the early days of our relationship with, with building the kōtuitanga. The university is very busy, and so is Ngāti Whātua. But I think there are trusted relationships in Ngāti Whātua with us and the university. And I do think this will be a disappointment to them, given the extent of the input that they had, as the Rūnanga report pointed out. It's the first major piece of work we did with them, and they're pretty excited about their story being, told, I guess, and accessible to all of our students in the university. But I think we will survive this, and we will continue to build those relationships.
Cecilia, can I just come in here and just say that it was a significant number of staff who, 426 staff who said in their voice that they weren't given enough time and that they would have got more signatures if they had more time than they had. What has been done to address that significant number who feel unheard or that their voice wasn't given enough opportunity?
Well, I think, John, their letter is before us. And we did allow it. I have to say that it did not actually specifically arrive in time necessarily to be put to council, but I agreed to have it put into the council papers, and I think that was the right decision. I think what we're hearing from Sarah and from Dawn is that, in fact, they are engaging with staff. And I think it's important to remember in this process that we are not saying that we are abandoning the course completely. We are saying that the course will not be compulsory unless, except in the few instances where, in fact, it is a requirement. The other thing I think it's really important to focus on is that, the Maori component of the course is one component of the course, and there are a lot of other things that the course is intended to achieve. But it is very clear from the feedback that has been received, and also from the external review that was done of the course, that it's not doing that at present. And I think we can look forward as a council to to getting a report, you know, this time next year, perhaps, of how the process has gone in terms of the different faculties going back and reworking the courses, and it would be, and obviously they can recommend those courses, and it would be interesting to once again hear what the reception of the courses is.
Well, I can tell you, it will be seen in Māoridom as another a back down to this government's oppression of anything to do with Māori, and that's how it will be viewed. And yeah, and it's sad really for the university that it will be viewed like that. This government has gone out of their way to take anything to do with te tiriti, anything to do and like what we're discussing now, out of the existence really. And yeah, it's for me, as I said earlier, we're on the wrong side of history. It's a back down. Kia ora.
Kia ora, John. Far.
You know, I really want to make this very clear from my
Well,
perspective.
but I think if you've already made the comment, perhaps we don't need to repeat it. I am conscious that, you know, the meeting is running over. I would like to, yeah.
but
If you, I mean, if you have a quick comment to make that you haven't already made.
I think it's just this process hasn't been initiated by government, or we haven't been lobbied by government. It's really clear. Students would be out protesting if that was the case. Our students are smart enough to make their own decisions, and this has been an academic process, from my perspective, independent, and having been a long-time commentator on this council's work. That's just my perspective.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, Far. So I'm going to put the motion if there is no other further discussion. Okay, I'm going to put the motion, and the motion is that the Chancellor moves that Council endorse the Vice Chancellor's amended proposed direction for Waipapa Taumata Road courses, note the Runanga advice as set out in the September Runanga report, note the Senate advice as set out in the September Senate report, note the Student Consultative Group advice as summarised in the memorandum, and note that decisions made in line with the Vice-Chancellor's direction will be implemented progressively as program regulation and system changes allow. Now I'm going to ask Kathy to second that. Okay.
Yep.
And I'm going to ask those in favour to put their hands up, please. So I have in favour, I have Far, I have myself, I have Candace, I have Kathy, I have Jonathan, I have Dawn, I have Sam. Okay, those then, anybody voting against the motion? I have Gemma and John. Julia, are you voting for, against, or abstaining?
Abstaining.
Abstaining. Okay, thank you. So I have 7 in favour, 2 against, and 1 abstaining. The motion is passed. Thank you very much, everybody, for your engagement in this process. So now I'm going to move to the next matter. I'm sorry, John, have you had something you wanted to ask?
No.
No, okay, right, good, thank you. I'm now moving, there is a rescindment here. There's a memorandum from the graduation office regarding the rescindment of a degree in the re-award. So I'm going to move that council rescind the Master of Engineering Project Management degree and reward it with the second class honours first division milestone as per the memorandum. So I'm going to move that, and I'm going to ask Far to second that. Thank you, Far. And then I have a second one regarding another memorandum. Oh, I need to move the yeah, I'll get there. Thank you, Wendy. I'm going to move that the council rescind the Doctor of Philosophy degree and re-award it with the correct specialisation as per the memorandum. I'll have you do that again. So student thing, thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Now I'm going back. I apologise. I missed the matters relating to the seal. We have a number of deeds there that the seal was related to. They're all related essentially to property leases. I'm going to move that the affixing of the seal to the listed documents be noted. I'm going to ask Sam to second that. Thank you. All those in favour? Okay, all good. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Now, is there any general business first of all, I apologise, I'm getting mixed up here. We now have the election of the Chancellor and the Pro-Chancellor. So I believe the acting registrar is going to take the chair. That's Kathy Stenier. And I am going to absent myself from this. And if Wendy, if you could just message me when I can return. Okay, I'm just gonna.
So were you asking me to move this, Samantha, Cecilia?
Kathy Stenier is going to chair the meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I think
That's
it's
what
actually
Wendy.
me.
That's what Wendy.
It's
Wendy
actually
right.
Tim. Sorry,
Oh,
just
it's Tim. I'm sorry.
it's Tim for this matter. Yeah, it takes three of us to do Adrian's job apparently. Which is,
oh right. Okay.
handing over to
you work
Tim.
it out, right?
Thank you. We will.
Thank you very much. Okay,